Hello everybody, I'm Briggs, and today we will be deciding the most badass old guy in anime, with a nice little bracket royale of course. In the first round we have the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi from Naruto versus Genryusai Yamamoto from Bleach. Master Roshi from the Dragon Ball franchise versus Edward Newgate, otherwise known as Whitebeard from One Piece. Hayato Furinji from Kenichi the Mighty Disciple, which you should all watch by the way, versus Isaac Netero from Hunter x Hunter, and finally King Bradley from Fullmetal Alchemist versus Yoshimura, the one-eyed owl from Tokyo Ghoul. But in the end, there can only be one. Just like in the last one, let's quickly define a badass old dude. And in my opinion, it's someone who is tough, intimidating, uncompromising, cool, and of course old. Let's get into the first round, the 69-year-old third Hokage versus Yamamoto, who is over 2,000 years old. When I think of the third Hokage, the first thing that comes to mind is his absolutely badass fight versus Orochimaru. Orochimaru makes his followers erect a barrier so that nobody can help the third Hokage. But Hiruzen Sarutobi is like, thanks bitch, this way nobody will interrupt us, and he's happy about it. But honestly, what makes this fight so badass is that Orochimaru summons the first and second Hokage, and Hiruzen takes all three of them on and puts up a solid fight against Hokage level opponents that can regenerate. But in the end, he realized he was going down, so he figured he might as well go out with a bang. He uses two shadow clones along with the dead demon consuming seal to remove the souls of the two Hokage. Insane. And then manages to put both of Orochimaru's arms out of commission. But his opponent is Genryusai Yamamoto. I picked these two characters because they are both badass old dudes who are leaders. The only difference is Yamamoto is the head captain of 13 other badass captains. So even though we don't get to see Yamamoto fight all that much, we do get to see the captains in action. The introduction of these captains were all amazing. They seemed as though they were untouchable forces. The presence and intimidation each of these captains emit are insane. And this dude is their leader? Now to be honest, I'm an anime only. But I do remember when both Shunsui and Ukitake, who are two strong long-running captains, take on Yamamoto and can barely hold him back. Yamamoto's presence and intimidation were on another level. Definitely the most badass fire user I have ever seen. They even stated they knew they had no chance against him in a head-on fight. Now, while these two captains were barely able to keep Yamamoto at bay, the third Hokage was only able to take out Orochimaru's arms and keep him at bay. To be fair, he was fighting against Orochimaru and two other Hokage, but in the end, I do think Yamamoto is more of a badass old guy, and I will have to advance him to the second round. In the next matchup, we have Master Roshi, who is apparently over 400 years old, versus Whitebeard, who is 72. Now, when I think of a badass old guy, Roshi is usually the first character that comes to mind, partly because Dragon Ball was my childhood, but also because he's a fucking badass old guy. Back when his opponents were at a reasonable level, Master Roshi could show off his skills, but as the series got more and more insane, pretty much anyone who was human became useless. But however, I gotta give Roshi something. He definitely pulled his weight in the Tournament of Power and showed off his martial arts expertise and experience taking on opponents that were stronger than him. Now that's something that definitely earned my respect. And even Beerus praised him. Not to hate on Roshi, but he doesn't compare to the beast that is Whitebeard and what he went through during the Marineford arc. When Whitebeard attacks, you need the entirety of the Marines and all of the warlords to even stand a chance. Let me just say this. You cannot take this man down. Even in death, his body did not fall. The total number of sword wounds he received in this battle was 267. He was shot by 152 bullets and was hit by 46 cannonballs. And despite all this, his proud back, over the course of his entire life as a pirate, never received a single scar from running away. Now, I got goosebumps just saying that. Roshi, I'm sorry, but you never stood a chance against the Goliath. That is Edward Newgate. In the next round, we have Hayato Furinji, age 90, versus Isaac Netero, age 110. And I love Kenichi the Mighty Disciple so much, I highly recommend it, and Hayato is untouchable within that universe. But speaking of badass moments and badass characters, Netero versus Meruem will forever be one of my favorite fights in all of anime. His presence and intimidation during this fight were insane. I'm definitely not an analysis channel, so I won't bore you with the details, but part of what made this fight so amazing was its thematic significance. Netero both literally and metaphorically represented humanity, the good and evil within humanity, fighting for its survival. I love Hayato Furinji, but honestly Netero will have to take this win. The thing with Hayato is he's known as the invincible Superman. He's kind of the One Punch Man of the series. Now, he doesn't exactly get a lot of moments to shine, and when he does, it's basically just showing how invincible he is. He's definitely a crazy badass old dude. However, his badass moments can't possibly have the same impact of Netero versus Meruem. Like, seeing him run on water and take on sharks is awesome and worth noting, but still, I'm going to have to give the win to Netero and have him advance to the next round. And finally, the last matchup of round 1, King Bradley, age 60, he's a youngin, versus the one-eyed owl, Yoshimura. His age is unknown, but he's definitely still a badass old guy. I still remember the first time I fanboyed over Fuhrer King Bradley. I believe it was in the original Fullmetal Alchemist that came out in 2003, when Edward was taking the alchemy exam and pointed out that it could be used as a way to assassinate Fuhrer King Bradley. Meanwhile, Edward didn't even see him draw his sword, and King Bradley just walks away laughing as Edward's spear falls apart. Or the time when he just walks right into the enemy's base and takes on a tank and the entire army easy, head-on, single-handedly. He is an unwavering, intimidating, nonchalant bastard, and I love him. And his opponent for today is Yoshimura, the one-eyed owl. The entire time I watched Tokyo Ghoul, I was just waiting for this old guy to show what he's got. He's the leader of Enteiku, which is an organization of ghouls of the 20th Ward, so I knew this guy had to be a badass old dude. And watching him transform to take on the CCG and hearing how much they feared him as the notorious one-eyed owl was amazing. However, I do wish I got to see him in action a little more. I don't know if they end up covering some prequel stuff in the manga, but I think because we got to see Fuhrer King Bradley in action a lot more, I'm going to have him advance this time around. However, when we do see Yoshimura in action, it is definitely badass nonetheless. Moving on to the second round, we have Yamamoto versus Whitebeard and Netero versus Fuhrer King Bradley. And these rounds usually go by a lot faster as I've already talked about each character. Before we actually jump into the second round, I just want to say that I make a ton of these bracket videos. For example, I did Shonen Protagonists, Most Badass Characters, Isekai Anime, and even the best girls in the 7 Deadly Sins. So if you enjoy, be sure to subscribe, and I'll be leaving a link to my tournament bracket playlist down below. But without any more delay, let's jump into the second round, Yamamoto versus Whitebeard. And as you guys know, I'm a huge One Piece fanboy. When Whitebeard first appeared at Marineford and uses his Devil Fruit for the first time, I was honestly in shock at this man's power, especially at his age, and we even knew that he had health issues. However, the only reason I don't think I can let him advance is that our only real encounter with Whitebeard is this one battle. And at the end of the day, he took a pretty huge L in more ways than one. Don't get me wrong, he's still a beast, and this one encounter was so impactful, and I absolutely love him, but I'm just trying to rationalize who I think deserves to advance to the next round, and I think I'm gonna have to give it to Yamamoto, as he really embodies that untouchable badass old guy who is just so much stronger, with so much more experience than anyone else, and he's a fucking sword user with fire abilities. Enough said. And for the second matchup of round 2, we have Netero versus King Bradley. And while King Bradley has some really cool moments, it really doesn't compare to Netero versus Meruem. I don't even want to waste my time with this matchup, as anyone who has seen both series would 100% agree with me. So now guys, we are on to the finals, Genryusai Yamamoto from Bleach versus Isaac Netero from Hunter x Hunter. And this is honestly a really hard matchup for me, and I would love to hear who you guys think should have won this bracket down below, but personally, even though Yamamoto is badass personified, when it comes to old anime characters, there's something about Netero that just impacted my opinion of him so much more and made me view him as an absolute badass above the rest. He became the badass that he is through sheer hard work and determination. After years of training, the series pretty much hints that he's achieved enlightenment. At first you think he's going to be this super strong badass old guy who maybe guides Gon and Killua and has a few badass moments here and there, kinda like the other characters within this bracket. But he honestly ended up being so much more. For example, when I think of Hunter x Hunter, the first thing that comes to mind is Netero versus Meruem. It's truly one of the greatest fights in all of anime, both in its over-the-top scale, but also in its significance. Netero literally slaps the competition and takes the win in today's bracket. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Recommend me some bracket ideas down below. Consider supporting me via Patreon, as it would allow me to hire more editors. A huge thank you to Evanito for editing this video for me. But on that note guys, let's jump into a little #BriggsQ to end it off. Favorite YouTuber? PewDiePie and Gigok. If you could make any change to the Harry Potter verse, what would it be? Oh my god, it would 100% be no Avada Kedavra. It just takes all skill out of the game. Because it's like, if you're a bad guy, why would you bother to use any other spell other than Avada Kedavra? And even if you're a good guy, it cheeses me that when it's a life or death situation, that you're going to be good and not use Avada Kedavra. You're fighting fucking Voldemort. Like, why are you trying to stun him? Use Avada Kedavra, you son of a bitch. Like, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. Take it out of the world, it messes everything up. It would be way more tactical, the battles, there would be a lot. Have you watched Dumbledore versus Voldemort? Battles would be more like that if people didn't have Avada Kedavra. Because why would you even bother if you could just, like, one-shot people? What is your favorite devil fruit power? I don't really have one. I feel like devil fruits are kind of generic. Like, I like them within the world, but I don't really have a favorite. If there was an anime you wanted to see live action, which would it be? And joke question, who have you spanked it to the most in the anime world? Love you, Briggs. Anime live action, they usually don't work out, but I wouldn't mind seeing One Piece or Kenichi, to give you generic answers. Apparently they're making a One Piece series, which I think is better than a movie, for example, because at least it has, I think a lot of the times, it's very hard for anime to adapt a series into a movie, let alone like an anime series into a live action movie. Like, you can't do Death Note and actually make the series just like make it the same. Like, I understand an adaptation's never going to be 100% identical, but if you're making a movie out of something that's like 50 episodes, it's not even physically possible to tell the same story. So I think the series is a way better route for One Piece, and I'm looking forward to it. Apparently it has a really big budget. I'm the type of person who stays positive until I see it. I hate that people are like, no, don't do live actions. It's like eventually they're going to figure it out. And I think they're already making progress, like things like Alita and Ghost in the Shell. It's just going to take time. Who is my waifu? Mio Fringy from Kenichi the Mice Disciple. How can someone unironically like Todoroki? I don't know. How do you pick shows to watch? Do you give a show a 3-episode as a cutoff? How often do you go outside your usually types of series? So one thing I've noticed is I really don't go outside my genres as often as I should. I've been doing it more and more lately as I've been getting into YouTube, but even still, I watch the most popular anime of other genres, but then within my genre of shonen or action or I won't watch too many slice of life or romance anime unless they're super popular, for example. And then other things like sci-fi anime or action or shonen, I watch a ton of them. I want to know how, oh wait, I didn't answer the rest of the question. Do I give shows a 3-episode cutoff? I feel like I can usually tell pretty quick if I'm going to like an anime. Even if I don't know enough about the story, I feel like I can tell if I'm going to like the characters or I'm going to like the premise. There's usually something that's going to hook me pretty quickly. So I could usually tell within 3 episodes. Sometimes I give it more, sometimes I give it less. Sometimes I watch 1 episode and I just know it's not for me. Not saying that it's not going to be good, because I didn't give it a chance, but just in general I could tell if it's for me usually off of like the first episode. How do you pick shows to watch? Honestly, I feel like I've seen so much. At this point, like I usually just hear within the community when something's popular. Like I've been around for so long that it's gotten to the point where I usually, like I have so many anime I need to watch. I have a never-ending list at this point, so it's not hard for me to pick shows. I'm like, oh yeah, that seems cool, and I go for it. It's like something catches my interest. I want to know how the Rat Cafe started. Who reached out to who type of thing. Who set it up at first, and what did the original goal of look like to I don't know what you're saying. So just in general, one time, like, I don't know how many years ago it was. I'm going to say 2 years. I'm making up a number. It might be longer. Me and Animac were actually watching a live stream, like, separately. I didn't know who he was. And we were just talking in chat, and he mentioned he was doing a podcast. I'm like, hell yeah, I'd be down for that. And we did, like, I think I wasn't on the first episode. Like, they did, like, an episode 0 type of thing. I was on the first, like, a first official episode, and I've kind of been there ever since, like, in and out. I was friends with Nux Taku a bit, and I actually kind of introduced Nux to Animac, and eventually, like, people came, people left, and me, Animac, and Nux noticed that our chemistry was really good, and eventually, like, it took a long time. We're on episode 118. Eventually,